Hi, and welcome to the Sensibly Speaking podcast. My name is Chris Shelton.
My name is Ruth McLeod.
And this is our premiere episode of our podcast. We'll see how this rolls out as we get going here, but we've been putting a lot of work into this, and we're really looking forward to talking to you folks and maybe putting some sensible words out there about secular activities and secular subjects and rational, skeptical, humanist topics and things of that nature. And we thought we might start our first podcast with a little introduction to who we are and why it is that you should actually be listening to us in the first place. So Ruth is going to start with that.
Well, I grew up religious, like a lot of secular people did. I grew up down south in southern Florida. I grew up non-denominational Church of Christ. These are the people who don't dance. These are the people who don't clap. We don't have instruments in church because apparently God hates all of that stuff. So I had a very long road of becoming an atheist, actually. Started with small questions growing up that were just not very well answered within my church. And then by the time I got into college, I basically was done. It was one of those things where you move away and you can do whatever you want and no one's watching you. Pretty typical. Had a very liberal college experience. Actually ran my Secular Student Alliance. And then after I graduated, I moved here to Denver. And
Land of the free, home of the brave.
Exactly. Right out of the South where I could definitely think on my own. And I took over the Denver Atheist Meetup group, and we have almost 1,900 members right now.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that big.
Yeah, we keep on growing. It's probably because I don't charge anybody. I also co-founded the Secular Sisterhood, a women's secular group here in Denver. I am also a member and on the board of the Secular Hub, one of the first brick and mortar community centers for secular people in the country. So
right, that's where we met.
That is where we met. So that's where I've been as far as my background and my ability to speak on secular topics.
Excellent. So I am a ex-member of the Church of Scientology. That is my main claim to fame in life and living this right now. I grew up in Scientology, but I really got involved with it when I was a teenager, and I worked for the church for a number of years, actually for, 27 of them. And
just a short time.
It was just a little bit of time. About 2.5 years ago, I got myself out of that group and have been speaking out against it. And in so doing, discovered the concepts and subjects of skepticism and reason and logic and critical thinking. And I decided that this is absolutely something that I needed to learn about, and I wanted to help others in my journey, kind of reach out and let other people know what I was doing. I was hoping that maybe I could appeal to those who might be in Scientology to help get them out. And so I started a blog and a YouTube channel called The Critical Thinker at Large, which is me. And
it's gotten pretty successful.
Yeah, just top 4,000 subscribers, so I'm kind of happy about that.
Bravo.
And so now what I'm doing is branching out with this podcast now. Ruth and I are now doing this so that I can talk about things about more than just Scientology. One finds as you recover from a cult experience, there's quite a few people out there who are in that position, by the way, that, one of the most healthy parts of getting out of that is staying out of it by focusing on new things and getting new purposes in life and moving in new directions and education and, improving the world through education and through awareness is something I'm very passionate about now. And I've taken that effort that got me into Scientology in the first place, which was to help people, and redirected that now in a much more sane and rational direction.
Right.
And so here we are doing this.
And just to be clear, I am an atheist, but you are not.
That is correct.
Right.
That's right.
So I think it's going to be really interesting, some of the things that we talk about and our different viewpoints. And you and I are not always going to agree.
No. In fact, that was actually something I thought would be really fun about doing this show, is that we would sort of bounce off each other a few times on topics, because she is, because Ruth is an atheist and I have, I still have spiritual beliefs, not Scientology beliefs. Those are all left behind. But
Right.
But I still hope and think that perhaps there might be a spiritual side to existence, and so that's how I kind of approach life.
And I do need to add the caveat of myself that I actually do call myself an atheist, but I am an agnostic atheist. So I don't claim to know that there's absolutely nothing out there. I definitely do not see any evidence. I just kind of choose to live my life as if there is no God. I've told people for years, starting in college when I ran my SSA, if you brought Jesus out of a closet, if for whatever reason that's where he's been for the last 2 millennia.
In the closet,
In
yes.
the closet.
I'm sure that's exactly where Jesus is.
Sure, I'll be the first one to believe your story, man, but until that time, I'm going to live my life as if there's not, basically.
And which is completely sensible. I'm not a church-going person now. I don't follow any particular faith. If I have to put a label on myself, it is agnostic and perhaps humanist. But the reason why I say I have spiritual beliefs is because that's a bit of faith and hope that I have sort of sectioned off in a part of my mind that sort of hopes that when we die, it's not all over. And that's why I say I have spiritual beliefs, not because I am a follower of any organized religion. I think both Ruth and I agree very much so that organized religion is for the birds and not something that has been overall constructive to the betterment of mankind through history.
Right. But I completely understand why someone would want to have religion or the hope that there is something after we die. It's a petrifying thought for people. It was something I had to go through that was petrifying to me, and it still makes tightness in my chest every now and then to think, holy crap, I'm going to die and I'm just going to not exist anymore. It's petrifying.
Yeah, it is. And it's something I haven't quite got my wits wrapped around yet,
Yeah, sure.
as far as accepting. So I think that might be the basis for some of my beliefs.
I don't know if it's something that you ever truly accept.
Yeah.
It's more like, you know how you think, okay, everybody's going to die, and you think that, but you still make plans.
Right.
You still make
Right.
plans at the end of the day, and you still hope that you leave some kind of legacy behind so not everybody forgets you immediately. And I think that's probably the scary part, is that you're going to be forgotten.
For sure.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah.
So.
And that, I know it certainly drives me to work as hard as I do on the things I work on. Between my channel and this now and various other things I do is an effort to try to leave a footprint on the world that's a positive one.
Right.
It very much drives me, and I think it drives a lot of us. Okay, so now you have a better idea of who we are and what we're doing here, and we want to approach, things like the news, topical points. And one thing I'd like to say is on my YouTube channel, I have done quite a few videos now, and I'll continue to do those. But those videos have always purposefully been of a timeless nature. I don't do videos in response to current news events or things that are happening or response videos. And I doubt that I'm ever going to get into that. The whole point of my YouTube channel is that I want my content to be relevant 2 years from now just as much as it is today, or 10 years from now. So what this show will do, though, will be kind of just the opposite. We'll be definitely taking up topics that are very current in the news and commenting on those, or hot topic subjects, and discussing those from a secular and skeptic point of view. So we're going to get into our next segment. In the news, our first story we're going to be taking up: Indiana public school punishes 7-year-old with banishment for not believing in God. This is from Raw Story, and the highlights of this are what it says here: a lawsuit recently filed against a teacher at Forest Park Elementary School in Indiana, bastion of religious freedom, alleged that a 7-year-old student was banished from sitting with other students at lunch after he revealed that he did not believe in God.
Just a shame.
Yeah. According to the lawsuit obtained by the Washington Post, second grade teacher Michelle Meyer interrogated the student, who was identified with the initials AB, about his religious beliefs after he told his classmates on the playground that he did not go to church because he did not believe in God. As a result, the child was ordered to sit by himself during lunch for a 3-day period.
So let me tell you what this does on a social level. And I like to think that I can speak on a social level just because my degree is in sociology, and I had a professor do the little hand cross motion like he was, anointing us with the power of sociology. So he said, "You are a sociologist." This to me is not just a half an hour punishment for 3 days. This is labeling this kid for the rest of his life. These kids are going to go to the same schools, especially in a small town, Indiana, they're going to stay in the same schools, they're going to stay in the same grade. This kid is going to be ostracized until someone baptizes him or something. And it's going to be absolutely ridiculous for this poor kid. And how old did it say he was?
I believe it said he was 7.
7?
7 years old.
7. So that's what, first, second grade?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And kids are cruel. Kids are the worst. They really are at being able to hold on to something like this and carrying it on. And you and I earlier were talking about mob mentality. Children definitely have a mob mentality, and they don't have the reasoning skills to be able to say, oh, well, everyone has their different viewpoints. He just happens to be different. No, they will just focus on he's different, and that's all they need.
And get this. Another aspect of this case is that he was made to sit by himself during lunch and told that he should not talk to other students, and was actually told it was because he had offended them.
Shut up.
Yeah. So here you have this student actually being singled out for persecution because he's being told at 7 years old that he was offensive to everyone else because he chose to not believe in what amounts to a fairy tale.
Those damn Christians always getting persecuted, Just for me, having a different thought process is persecuting them.
Exactly.
How dare I? Wow.
Yeah. So, thankfully, somebody saw sense here and actually brought a lawsuit on this matter, and that's, seeking damages and attorney fees.
Which is another shame. It's just wasting taxpayer money to bring a lawsuit to a school. But I'm not saying they shouldn't have sued. I'm just saying that there's no reason that the school should have allowed this to get to this point. There's absolutely no reason.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And apparently it was on the part of this one teacher. Mm-hmm. The school district issued a statement saying that the teacher, suggested that the teacher had been wrong to single out the child, and stated, the quote here states from the district, "It is clear that it is not the province of a public school to advance or inhibit religious beliefs or practices. Under the First and 14th Amendments to the Constitution, this remains the inviolate province of the individual and the church of his or her choice. The rights of any minority, no matter how small, must be protected." It would sure have been nice if that teacher had gotten the word before deciding to basically what amounts to religious persecution or reverse discrimination.
I've known very, very many teachers in my lifetime. I have teachers in my family. I'm sure a lot of people do. I'm sure a lot of people are teachers. If they can teach you not to bend over in front of middle schoolers because of all the jokes they're going to make, you'd think they'd be, hey, by the way, these are the just general amendments that you might want to know about.
Yeah, separation of church and state. Yeah, those kind of archaic, sort of hard to find, esoteric concepts, that aren't so easy to
Just that
figure out.
That first one, there's freedom of speech. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion. I mean, that just seems pretty basic to me. And I've spoken with quite a few teachers and professors about this. For the most part, they don't mention anything personal, especially religion, because you don't want to bring something like this to light, and you don't want to have to deal with the lawsuit or the just general headache that something like this is going to bring.
And, fortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because fortunately, this did get media attention.
Yes.
And this has directed, people to look into this. And it's well-deserved.
Absolutely.
We need to shine the light on this.
Absolutely.
So, also in the news this week, this was according to Religion News Service. The Mormon Church reveals images of founders' seer stone. And for any of you who might have seen the Mormon episode of South Park, you might be, I think everybody's kind of familiar with the fact that, yes, the fact that, well, here's the story. From Salt Lake City, the Mormon Church released photographs on Tuesday, this was August 3rd, of a so-called seer stone that members believe was used by the Utah-based faith's founder, Joseph Smith, to write the Book of Mormon, its principal sacred text. Photos of the egg-shaped, chocolate brown rock are in a new publication that also carries images of the first printer's manuscript of the Book of Mormon, which Smith said was based on ancient records and include an account of a visit to America by Jesus Christ. So this is quite interesting. This has been the first time that this stone has seen the light of day since apparently Joseph Smith held it in his hand and somehow used it to translate these gold plates.
It surprised me how smooth it is.
Yes. I'm not quite sure how it is that you would use a rock to translate gold plates. I'm not quite sure how that's supposed to have worked. And he apparently did it in a hat. So is that I have that right?
He put the stone along with were they plaques?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gold plates.
Plates, that's the word. Gold plates, stone in a hat, stuck his face in there, and just basically read off what he was seeing.
That's right.
I wonder if the church elders have tried this.
It might be a good test of faith.
One of them on an initiation night got wasted and just tried it. I bet you. That would just make my night. I can't.
It is, I want to be clear, actually, and I really should be very, very clear about this, that people can believe whatever they want.
Absolutely.
But when you start talking about reading gold plates that nobody has now in their possession with a chocolate-colored egg-shaped rock.
It literally looks like an Easter egg, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds like a Cadbury egg, yeah. It sort of stretches the, my credulousness a bit.
Well, and I think if we grew up with the Mormon religion and everyone else around us had, and we'd had it for 2,000 years, and then we heard the story of some virgin giving birth in a barn somewhere after an angel told her, and strung up, died, came back three days later, walked on water, all of this, we would be just as surprised that people would buy this ridiculous story. It's just our crazy just happened to have been around a lot longer than this crazy.
That is true. There's a definition out there that floats around about cults and religions, and that I don't happen to agree with this actually, but there's this idea that a religion is a cult that's been around a really long time. And I don't happen to think that. I think a cult is a bit more specifically defined by certain traits it has, right? A central leader whose word is law, the us
You
versus
mean like
them.
Jesus?
Yeah.
You mean like the persecution that a 7-year-old is going to offend everybody with his thoughts?
Yeah, that gets rather cult-like, yes. The us versus them mentality, right? That sort of thing.
Oh, there's definitely an us versus them mentality. I was definitely taught that I was constantly being persecuted as a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And that we were definitely the minority is what I was taught, which was obviously incorrect.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
But.
Well, moving right along. We have here the story Bobby Jindal. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Jindal. Bobby Jindal cuts Medicaid funding to Planned Parenthood clinics in Louisiana.
I was actually born just outside of New Orleans in a funky little town called Metairie or Metairie, depending on where you're from. Ever since Bobby Jindal became a governor, he has increasingly been cutting money wherever he feels necessary. He's cut funding from education, and now he's cutting funding from just basic women's health. And I don't think he's doing it for good reasons. I really think he's trying to push his presidential campaign, even though he's not even close to becoming a candidate. So we actually can all wipe our brow and go, whew, on that one, because he's absolutely insane. He really is.
Wow.
It's appalling. Every single thing that I learn. I'm so glad I already got my degree from Southeastern Louisiana, because as soon as I left, budgets were cut left and right. He made so many cuts, they had to take out French as a degree in Louisiana, which every other person speaks French in Louisiana. It's
right, sort of like cutting Spanish in the schools in California.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's one of those things where everyone went, excuse me? And now this whole nonsense, he wants to cut funding from Medicaid. I always do that. Medicare, Medicaid. Mm-hmm. He wants to cut any funding that Planned Parenthood gets from Medicaid because he doesn't like the concept of abortions. There are 2 Planned Parenthood clinics in Louisiana as of this moment. Neither one of them performs abortions.
Oh.
Neither one of them. There is one being built in New Orleans right now. It was recently firebombed.
Really?
Yes. Someone, trying to burn it down.
Wow.
I believe, and I'm probably shouldn't say it without fact checking myself, but I do believe that this new location would provide abortions.
Okay.
That's probably why they're so heavily protesting it, to where the fact that they need to peacefully firebomb it.
Peacefully. Yes. Yeah. It was a very peaceful firebomb.
It was a very peaceful, because, Christians can do no wrong.
Right.
And if you say that they are, it's persecution.
Right. It's offending them.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. You got to do everything you possibly can to protect those babies.
Right.
Right. This is what's happening right now in Louisiana with Jindal.
Well, one thing that has to be commented on, especially with this campaign that's been going on against Planned Parenthood, that's really taken off in the last few weeks with those videos, is that Planned Parenthood provides services far beyond abortion.
3% of what they do as a whole is abortions.
Exactly.
3%.
So you're talking about a service that is provided free to a number of people at all economic strata and social levels, right? As a real service. It's a public community service.
Right.
Right?
And not just for women.
No, not just for women.
No.
I am familiar with some of Planned Parenthood's services for males. And
wow, do we need to have a conversation?
We will not have a conversation about that. But I am familiar.
Yeah.
Right? And I think honestly most Americans are, because Planned Parenthood is all over the place, and is not shy about providing those services.
No, absolutely not.
And we're talking about education, we're talking about contraceptives.
STD checks, Plan B. I've gone there for Plan B before. I will put that out right now. I have walked into a Planned Parenthood, sat down. They answered every single question I had. They asked me questions that no doctor has ever asked me before. And I say that as a good thing because it shows me they gave a damn. I did not feel like I was doing anything wrong by being there. I did not feel that I had become a slut because I had to go there. I needed it. I went there. I got the help that I needed. And everything was fine. I walked out feeling, what's the word I'm looking for? I wasn't worried about my situation. So that's...
Yeah, and the other thing that also needs to be mentioned about Planned Parenthood is they are non-discriminatory.
Yes.
You can be a Christian, and you can walk in there, and they will help you.
Of course they will.
Right?
Yeah.
You can be a Catholic, and you can walk in there, and they won't turn you away because of your religious beliefs.
Exactly.
I wish the same could be said the other way around. You know? So these guys really do give of themselves, and considering that, you know, firebombing and violence is very real against people who work for these places, they are putting themselves really in the line of fire and to do what they do, and it's quite good work they do.
Right. I know a few people who work there, who volunteer there here in Denver. They're fantastic people, and I can't thank them enough for what they do every single day. Hopefully Louisiana won't have to deal with it too much longer.
Yeah, or any of these states. You know, this whole video campaign that's going on, I've only really been brushing up against the edges of it. I'm not fully briefed on the whole thing, but what I've seen is that these videos are out there that supposedly have Planned Parenthood selling baby parts or some nonsense, and this has been disproven, like fact-checked and disproven and fact-checked and disproven about 10 times, and this still floats around out there.
I'm not an expert. I'm a little bit where you are, but I feel like I know just a tad bit more. I may have read into it just a tad bit more. So what it is, when a woman gets an abortion for whatever reason, there's a plethora of reasons that a woman would get an abortion, they ask, would you like the cells from this fetus to be donated? And, you know, you sign a waiver, and then they send the tissue to be tested on by scientists to try to figure out why a fetus either didn't make it, or they do testing to try to figure out or how to deal with diseases that...
So we're talking about medicals, just standard medical testing.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Thank you for making that short.
Well, it certainly is not easy to get, just strictly speaking and getting really down to brass tacks, it is not easy to get human subjects to do testing on. What
Planned Parenthood is reimbursed for is the cost for shipping it to them.
Right.
They're not getting paid for tissue. They are being reimbursed for the transportation, for the collection, things like that. That is what they're being reimbursed for. They're not selling baby parts.
The whole thing is just it's interesting to me from the point of view that it is a planned campaign against Planned Parenthood that apparently took quite some time to put together, and they are really trying to run with this thing. And I wonder how coincidental it is that this is coming out, you know, as presidential candidates are now on the platform stumping about on this, you know, and Planned Parenthood almost lost their national funding as a result of this, which is pretty clearly was one of the key targets of this campaign.
Right.
Things like this don't just happen.
And I'm kind of like you with the video information. I just read about this, but I didn't read into it. There's nationally a information going around that's saying you cannot cut Medicaid funding for Planned Parenthood because it would stop people from getting basic health care. So
good.
Pay attention, General.
All right, and with that, we're going to take a break and be right back with some more news. You are listening to the Sensibly Speaking podcast. Isn't it about time someone made some sense around here? And moving on here, we have another story coming out of North Carolina now. This was an interesting one. This is again from the Raw story. North Carolina County Commissioner storms out of meeting during Muslim prayer. quote, "I don't need no Arab telling me what to do." Now, the text of this story goes, the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners had always opened government meetings with Christian prayer. About 2 months ago, officials decided that in order to avoid legal trouble, they'd have to let everyone participate. That didn't last long. On Monday, Commission Chairman Carroll Mitchum, who's a guy, who had previously announced he wouldn't bow to minorities and that, quote, he ain't gonna have no new religion or pray to Allah at board meetings, held true to his word and walked out on the first person to address the North Carolina government meeting with a Muslim prayer. This was according to the Lincoln Times News reports. That was, quote, that was very upsetting. It was upsetting. Dustin Bartow of the Foothills Interfaith Assembly, who had led the Muslim prayer. By the end of the meeting, all prayer was banned at board meetings and will be replaced with a moment of silence.
Which is what it should have been to start with.
Well, yeah. Commissioner Alex Patton initiated the motion, which was easily voted into effect. And they say here, quote, to me, the final straw was when our chairman got up and walked out, Patton told WSCO-TV, adding that the commission needed to focus on pressing matters like the economy and education. The issue of prayer at the meetings had generated months of controversy. Previously, Mitchum had voted to keep Christian-only prayers at the meetings. I don't believe we need to be bowing to the minorities. The U.S. and the Constitution were founded on Christianity. This is what the majority of people believe in, and it's what I'm standing up for. He then goes on to say, this was this board member, I don't need no Arab or Muslim or whoever telling me what to do, or us here in the country what to do about praying. If they don't like it, stay the hell away. We're fighting the Muslims every day. I'm not saying they're all bad. They believe in a different God than I do. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. But they don't need to be telling us as Christians what we need to be doing. They don't need to be rubbing our faces in it.
So first off,
yes,
Allah and God are the same thing.
Exactly. Right off. Let's just get that out of the way straight away.
The
same God.
Christianity, Judaism, and Muslim all have the same God.
Same God.
Same person.
Same guy. Yep.
Same guy.
They might call him different names. It's the same guy. And this is definitely a reflection of the ignorance underlying this kind of hatred.
I'm not sure where I would put myself on a confidence level if my councilman uses the word ain't that frequently. I ain't gonna talk about it.
Well, this business, and one of the actual important problems here is this guy thinking that this is a Christian nation that was somehow founded on Christian principles. And this goes, people just keep throwing this out there as though it has some like legitimacy or truth to it, when it's just not. It's so not true that it's almost laughably false.
Right. And I will say this, being from the South, I just always assumed that we were a Christian nation because that's what I was always told.
Right.
It wasn't until probably mid-high school, going into college, that I really thought, maybe that's not correct. The more I started to read on my own.
Starting to wonder about this.
So if we're a Christian nation, but we came over here to be away from a particular religion, and we're not supposed to establish a religion, how are we religious? How are we a Christian? Wait.
Exactly.
So,
and you go back to the quotes from the Founding Fathers, and it's abundantly clear.
Yeah.
Abundantly clear.
Right. And, they can sit there and argue that, it has the word creator in there.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, I'm a creator.
Right.
I mean, I've got the baby-making supplies here. I could create life if I wanted to, damn it.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's kind of a trivial point to try to make, but...
No, and the point is that there is a lot of false information being spread around, yeah, on all sides. We're picking on, this guy right now and Christians, but the fact is that there's a lot of false information that gets spread around, and on the basis of that false information, people make decisions and people act in a very intolerant way toward others.
Right.
And, if there was some way that, that people could consider or think that it would be more important to treat others with respect and tolerance than to, discriminate because they believe something different. Or, this guy has this all drummed up that we're fighting Muslims. And so therefore, and out of one side of his mouth, he's saying, I'm not saying they're all bad. But right out of the other side of his mouth, he's saying, don't you tell me what to do. Well, nobody's telling him what to do.
No. And if you get that upset over someone saying a prayer, and then you turn around and kind of accuse people like me, atheist, for being upset over prayer, you might want to take a look in the mirror there, sir.
Yeah, it's a little bit silly. And now, the end of this story, there was a video on this story, and this guy, Carol Mitchum, actually was dealt with on this, and the next day he came out, and I think it was kind of thrown in his face in a pretty clear way that he was not acting in a way that was representative of a government official, because he correctly came out the next day with an apology about this and sort of backpedaled on it, and he actually said some, he said some really good things. I don't have the quote because it was in the video, but he definitely made it clear that he had a change of heart about it. And
I'm sure
it's a good, it's good that occurred.
It is. It is
as a result of this.
Whether it was truthful or not, or heartful, if you want to say, or not, I think it showed good character on his part to come out and say that was not the way he should have acted. I mean, you can only hope that someone in a rational mind would not act that way to start with, especially in such a childish manner that he did. Being a council person, you would have to sit through all sorts of things, and you represent your community, and if someone in your community is of a different religion, then you need to be respectful of that.
That's right, and that's something that I think far too many politicians, right from the point when the Supreme Court decision came down about gay marriage, it became very black and white all of a sudden, like within hours of who was going to not choose to represent their constituency because of their own personal religious bias, or because they were pandering to a minority of people in their constituency who they felt they needed to pander to. I'm talking about you, Scott Walker, or certain others who really got up on a pedestal, Mike Huckabee, and decided that this was going to be their issue of the day, and they were not going to lay down on this. And it's pretty sad when you see that, because they are not. Government officials are not elected to be religious leaders.
Right.
Government officials are elected to represent all of the people that they are from their zone.
Right.
So when you see such blatant hypocrisy or blatant disregard for, a good, sizable portion of the population, in this case, homosexuals, right, or the LGBT community, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable behavior in a government official. It
makes you feel like less of an American sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, I am the one who should not be here for whatever reason, either because, if I'm an atheist, or if I was religious, I'm not part of that particular religion, or if I was LGBTQ, I'm not correct some way.
Right.
So having someone down the street not agree with who I am, fine. Having an elected official who's supposed to represent me not agree and, completely stomp on civil rights, it makes you feel like you're not part of this great society.
That's right. It's kind of similar to how that 7-year-old must have felt.
Exactly. Way to tie things back in there.
Boy, wasn't that was kind of clever, huh?
Clap, clap, clap.
All right, and to end our news topic here, we have a bit of satire out of the New Yorker. This is from the Borowitz report. Headline, Scientists, Earth endangered by new strain of fact-resistant humans. Yes. Okay, this is out of Minneapolis. Scientists have discovered a powerful new strain of fact-resistant humans who are threatening the ability of Earth to sustain life, a sobering new study reports. The research conducted by the University of Minnesota identifies a virulent strain of humans who are virtually immune to any form of verifiable knowledge.
Wow.
Yeah, leaving scientists at a loss as to how to combat them.
Huh.
Yeah. These humans, this is quote, these humans appear to have all the faculties necessary to receive and process information, Davis Logsdon, one of the scientists who contributed to the study, said, and yet somehow they have developed defenses that for all intents and purposes have rendered those faculties totally inactive.
Huh.
More worryingly, Logsdon said, as facts have multiplied, their defenses against those facts have only grown more powerful.
Wow.
Yeah. While scientists have no clear understanding of the mechanisms that prevent the fact-resistant humans from absorbing data, they theorize that the strain may have developed the ability to intercept and discard information en route from the auditory nerve to the brain. The normal functions of human consciousness have been completely nullified, Logsdon said. While reaffirming the gloomy assessments of the study, Logsdon held out hope that the threat of fact-resistant humans could be mitigated in the future. He says, our research is very preliminary, but it's possible that they will become more receptive to facts once they are in an environment without food, water, or oxygen.
So basically,
Kill them into space. Yeah, basically, if we toss them up into space,
kill them and they might become rational.
That might help. Yeah, this is of course all satire here. Mm-hmm. None of this is true, but it does of course bring up something along the lines of what we've been talking about here, which is that there are some people who seem to hear facts. They seem to register, mm-hmm. and yet they never actually make it into the person's mental processes.
Right. Don't we call that cognitive dissonance?
Well, cognitive dissonance is actually one possible outcome of this, where a person receives facts or information that causes dissonance or causes confusion with some facts or information they already have. Mm-hmm. And cognitive dissonance is the noise that's generated from that. And there's a tremendous number of studies that have been done as to how people will deal with that. Okay. And one way of dealing with that, and I'm familiar with this from my cult studies, is, or rather from when I got out of the cult studies,
right.
is they will ignore that information. They'll treat it as though it isn't real, didn't happen.
Right.
And another way might be to just drown it out, call the person a liar. This sort of these knee-jerk reactions. Mm-hmm. So that is definitely one aspect of this.
Right.
Pretty silly stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you got a little bit more of a tickle out of it than I did.
I did, actually. I did think it was a rather humorous article.
I'm a little bit more sad about it.
Yeah, I know.
Because I could name a few people.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
I'm related to a few people.
Well, yes.
That's my blood, y'all.
And now it's time for...
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
So this is our next segment, What Are You Talking About? And this is where we will be having conversation around a specific topic. And this week, that topic will be religious belief and the sense of community that it provides.
Right.
And we want to talk about how that works and our experience with that.
So this is actually a topic that's really close to my heart. Growing up in a religion, and I'm sure you have the same experiences, the community was everything.
Yes.
I mean, anything from youth groups to adult classes, potlucks. This is where you went. This is where I went 3 times a week. You probably lived there.
Mm-hmm. Well, for a period of time, I certainly did.
Yeah. I went Sunday morning, Sunday night, and then Wednesday night. You had to get that middle of the week boost of Jesus in your life because you probably were doing all sorts of sins. But when like I said, I moved to Louisiana to go to college. I moved back to Louisiana to go to college. And when I went there, my mother moved with me. She found me a church to go to. And then when she left, she just assumed I was starting to go to this church. I went once with her, and that was it. Because as soon as she was gone, and I basically told myself, peace out, I'm partying. And then for a really long time, I had that loss because I didn't know anybody in town. I didn't have those kinds of connections that you make easily within a church. Wasn't a part of a youth group at all. I was just going to school, and I wasn't really integrating myself into the school yet. It took me a while to find a group that made sense to me, and that was the Secular Student Alliance. And I think that was a big catapult for me into being an atheist, because up until that point I was still very scared of the term because that was a negative term. I mean, it's just like abortion. It's a bad word.
Yeah, especially in Louisiana.
It gives it gives you a bad taste in your mouth. Atheist were the people who wore black, who hated society, who were just angry and mad and probably cut themselves, all this.
Sort of get the idea of gothic.
Exactly, yeah. You know, just bad group of kids all around. And, you know, this being what it is, no one can actually see me. I'm quite preppy. I really am. I'm much more comfortable in khakis than I am in jeans. I like my pretty skirts and dresses and all that. I get my nails done. I'm pretty preppy white girl.
She is.
Yeah, I really am. And so when I said, oh man, I think I'm just agnostic for a while, I didn't want to say atheist because...
Yeah, it's got all this bad juju connected to
juju.
it. That's right.
So I joined the Secular Student Alliance, and I started meeting up with all these other kids that were just as normal as me. Don't get me wrong. We had our crazies. There's always the crazies in the group. But being able to have a group of friends that I can go to and talk with and communicate with and just connect with on that level was incredibly helpful for me. And I've heard so many stories of people. If you look at the openly secular campaign or coming out secular and all this, they have so many stories of people who said, okay, well, once I decided to become an atheist, I just kind of, resolved myself to being alone and not being a part of anything.
Right.
And that's the sad part of atheism. And that's why you have so many people who leave a religion, see nothing for themselves, and then go back. Or that's why you have a lot of people stay in a religion because they feel that they have nowhere else to go. They're afraid of losing their families. They're afraid of losing all of their friends. They're afraid of being alone. And humans are a very social creature. Exactly. We need our communities. And that's why I am so involved here in Denver with Denver Atheist, with Secular Sisterhood, with the Secular Hub, with things like this, to give us a community of people to work with, to connect to be family with. And that's really what I found here.
That's awesome. And that sense of community is very, very important because we are herd pack creatures,
yes.
Right? That's something I was twigging on coming to a realization of rather late in life, as I was studying things after Scientology. But it's very, very true, and you see it all around. And, a comment on this, though, is that, if you're out there listening to this and you're feeling like you're going to, if you were to go secular or you were to go, in that direction, and you feel, well, I'm part of this community right now, one thing that has become very clear to me is when we're in a little world of some kind, whether it's the Protestant world or the Christian world, or we're part of the the coal miners guild or something. I mean, no matter what group you're part of, you tend to view the world through a filter or through the eyes of that group.
Yes.
And it's kind of like when you own a Toyota Camry. you see all the Toyota Camrys all over the road, right? And then
Yeah.
then you go out and you buy, the Nissan Sentra, and suddenly everybody's diving into Nissan Sentra.
Right.
Well, no, nothing really changed.
Right.
Your view changed.
Right.
And those communities are out there. There are atheist communities. There are secular communities. There are agnostic communities. There are any group of people you want to, any category you want to jump into. When you jump into it, you are going to find other people of like mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important to know, because there isn't any real reason to feel alone or feel neglected or feel that you're going to be losing out if you go from one community to another.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
It is a proactive process. You do have to kind of look.
Right.
Right? But for example, when I came out of Scientology, I was alone, very, very much so, out in Minnesota, until I found the concept of skepticism and critical thinking. And I wasn't particularly thinking of secularism or atheism or anything. It just so happened that a lot of atheists or secularists are skeptics.
Yes.
And I hooked up with a skeptic group and found kindred spirits, people who had come out of religions, very much understood where I'd come from, even though none of them had been in Scientology.
Right.
They certainly understood what it was like to be part of a community.
Yeah.
And they were now forming up their own community, the skeptics community.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very much accepted there, and that was wonderful. So then when I moved here to Denver, all I had to do was look up the secular group.
Oh, yeah.
And bang, instant community. And I, again, welcomed with open arms, made a lot of friends, and I couldn't really be more pleased with that.
I know, right? How can you not be pleased with meeting me?
Exactly.
That's where you.
Well, there were a few other people involved, but also the other thing about it is liberating to not be defined by what you used to be, but be able to move into new groups or new categories in life, new things, and kind of transcend some of those labels,
right.
And just be allowed to be you.
Right.
And that's one thing I found with the secular community specifically that was very, very nice.
And you know what I like about it? When I was in church, it was one of those things where you definitely had to believe like they believed. There was no, yes but, there was none of that. It was this way or no way. We had preachers who would literally say, if you don't believe like us, you're going to go to hell.
Yep.
Very comforting, warm and fuzzy.
Yes. Very inclusive group. Yes.
Exactly. But in the secular community, there are many times that I do not agree with someone else at the hub in Denver Atheist, and it doesn't become a shouting match between the two of us. It's, you have your opinion, I have mine. That's fantastic. As long as we both come from a logical background for our views, perfect. I've met free thinkers or humanists, basically the same thing.
Yeah.
I've met humanists who are pro-life, which shocked the hell out of me.
Wow.
But they had a damn good argument, and that's fine. And, I've met people who completely disagree with me on, I can't even think of something right now.
Gun rights.
It happens.
Like
that. Gun rights. Yeah. There's plenty of secular people who are all about, I need to have more guns, where I'm kind of like, if I shoot one again, I'm going to cry.
Right.
Not a big gun person. I will throw knives at you all I can, but that's about it.
I see that, yeah. Yes.
But it's incredibly wonderful to be able to have a community like this. And I'm telling you, if they're in southern Louisiana, they're where you are. They really are.
Exactly. And all you have to do is look, And we're not even on a membership drive here. It's just been our experience that we're talking about.
Right.
This is what we've lived through, and it's important to share this kind of thing because people will stay in bad relationships, bad cults, bad religions, bad groups of any kind. A person will tend to stay in such a group or such a social situation because they don't feel like if it's better this than nothing.
Right.
Or, there's this mentality of, well, I can't make a change now. I've been doing this for so many years.
Right.
And it's, it just take the plunge, because if you want to make a change, the point about making such a change is not because I tell you to or anybody tells you to. It's for what you feel is right. If you are not comfortable in your situation, if you're not comfortable, if your beliefs have changed over the years, things like that, you should feel totally comfortable and totally fine with moving on in your life.
Right.
And living your life according to how you want to.
You have every right to do so. You have every right to be able to say, I don't agree.
Precisely.
And you know what? If you look and there's not a group in your area, look into starting one on your own. I guarantee you there's other people in your area who are looking just like you. And if you start it, they will definitely join, and you'll have your own little community.
Exactly. If you build it, they will come.
I was trying not to do that.
I had to go there.
You know what? I think I'm going to blame that on a different generational thing, because you saw it and you went for it. I saw it and I went, better not.
Yeah, totally went for it. Only the best movie ever made. Period, hands down, end of story.
You know what? I don't agree. And that's okay.
Just saying, you can be wrong and that's okay.
Wow. Wow.
All right. Well, with that, we are coming to the end of our show.
Woo-hoo.
Our first premiere episode. As we go, we will work out the kinks and whatnot. But I think we had some good topics here to talk about.
Yeah.
And we are actually looking forward to this coming out every week. This will be coming out, and also as we move along here and get this grooved in, we're going to be doing interviews with people and bringing other people on board and that sort of thing. And we are more than happy to hear any comments, feedback of any kind that you might have. Leave a review for us on iTunes. Definitely spread the word and subscribe away out there.
And if you have any questions, comments, you want to tell us anything at all about this show, you can email us at chris@sensiblyspeaking.com or ruth@sensiblyspeaking.com.
Email away. We will see them, and we will look forward to and take anything you say into consideration.
Within reason.
Exactly. Within reason. That's right. So we will be back next week, and thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to hearing your feedback.
Keep being rational.